Education Summit on WILO. Over the next 90 minutes, you will hear a variety of education professionals from the area talk about issues affecting them and their respective schools and how they can make a positive difference in the students' lives. This morning's broadcast will be replayed this evening at 6 p.m. on WILO. The WILO Education Summit 2018 is brought to you by Ivy Tech of Frankfort, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Center Township Trustee Kevin Evans, Wamplers, and Casper Media. Now, here are your moderators, Ken Hartman and Russ Casper.
Welcome to the WILO Education Summit. I'm Ken Hartman. The goal of this venture is to reassure every parent and guardian that these educators are giving your child or children the best possible education as well as keeping them safe at all times in an environment they want to learn in and enjoy the best possible success. I want to introduce my co-host, Russ Casper. Russ.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Let me introduce our panelists who have graciously agreed to be part of this education summit. We have here going around the table Shan Sheridan, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and then we have Ralph Walker, Clinton Central Superintendent. Ralph, in the purple shirt there, and Don DeWeese, Community Schools of Frankfort. Appreciate Don being here. Amanda Whitlock, Clinton Prairie, Superintendent of Schools. Jim Hanna, Rossville Superintendent. Rob Staley, Crossing Schools CEO. And also Andrew Muffett, Ivy Tech Frankfort Site Director. Todd Gamble, IUK Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs and Enrollment Manager. And we also introduced, of course, Shan Sheridan, Clinton County Chamber of Commerce. We want to thank the people that are making it possible for us to be here, and that would be sponsored by Ivy Tech Community College, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Clinton County Center Township, and Wampler Services Incorporated. Without these sponsors, we would not be able to do this. And I do want to thank also Ken Hartman. This is kind of his brainchild. And Ken, of course, goes to the school board meetings. He knows what's going on from the inside. We also want to open this up to phone calls. So we'll encourage you to call 765-659-3338. If you have a question, we'll get it out on the table. And we also want to mention, too, that it's going to be kind of a freewheeling discussion. We have some questions planned, but this could go anywhere. Ken, I think you have the first question.
Okay. This is for all of you. What are each of you guys doing for school safety in each of your schools? We'll start over here with Don and go around the table.
Thanks, Ralph. Ken, in the Community Schools of Frankfort, we have a single point of entry in all of our schools. It's a secured, controlled entrance. We also have a uniformed and an armed officer in all of our schools. One of the latest additions is an agreement that we have come up with Community Howard, in that we have additional mental health people in all of our buildings, some bachelor's level skills specialists and some master's degree therapists that are going to help us with identification and support of students that are having some difficulties in schools. So those are the items that we have in place to try to keep our kids safe.
Okay, Ralph, go ahead.
Clinton Central is somewhat similar. I think all of us, you have to buzz in, and a secretary can see the face of the individual to make a determination if they will allow them to enter our buildings. We talk constantly to the students about safety, particularly not opening a door for anyone. Back in the day, our shop doors would have been up. They are down 100% of the time now, unless something is going in and out of the building. I think safety for all four of us is a top priority, and I really think that all four county schools are doing a great job.
Amanda, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, we do a lot of the same as Frankfort Central and Rossville with the locked doors. We're constantly on a lock out where people buzz in and they have to be identified as to why they're there, what's their nature of their business. But that's pretty common among the 4 schools. Another thing that not just Clinton Prairie, but all the county schools do as well is we have staff designated for school safety specialists. So all of our administrators are trained by the state of Indiana for school safety, as well as this year we're training some additional staff members, on things to look for, on ways to combat some safety issues, and so that'll be ongoing throughout this year. So.
Rossville's taken an all hazards approach. We do many of the same things the other county schools do. This year started with training, and our focus is on training. On August 1st, we trained over 100 staff members in bleeding control, CPR, and also dealing with teen suicide or preventing teen suicide. In the spring of 2018, we hosted 70 folks from throughout the county. All 4 county schools were invited for a program on suicide prevention. And we also do the school safety specialist. We have the locked doors, and ours go beyond to where we've purchased some equipment. We have the bleeding control stations throughout the building. Every teacher that's been trained has a bleeding control kit, which includes a tourniquet, gauze for packing wounds, things like that in their classroom. Of course, we have cameras, which most schools do as well. We do the visitor scan-in where they buzz in, but once they get to the office, they also scan their ID to run criminal background check on those individuals coming into the building. And one of the biggest things for Rossville is a construction project, which will then funnel everybody through a central entrance as they come in and out of the building.
Rob, go ahead.
Hi, Rob Staley, CEO of the Crossing Educational Center. We have 18 locations in Indiana. One of them happens to be in Frankfort. And basically following the protocol that the state recommends, as well as very similar to what the schools are doing in this area. We have a single point of entry. A teacher is the only one that can open the door to allow somebody into the building. We follow all the state authorized drills, which would include active shooting drills and any of those drills that are mandated by the state. And do a lot of the same practices here. And probably the most important thing is we build very close relationships with our kids. Our kids know us extremely well. We know them. We know their parents. We know their families. And 90% of everything that would happen in our building would come directly from our students. They would inform us that there's something going on, not necessarily just a locked door. We'd want to have those relationships that are good sources of information.
Andrew, do you and Todd do something different than what the high schools do?
Yeah, I can. Actually, I was going to mention that the next few answers would probably be a little bit different. We have kids coming and going and adults coming and going all day. So it makes it a lot more difficult to have one point of entry, and different things like that. So basically the way that we tackle it is we have an alert system called Alertus is one of the ways that we approach that. And so that can send out alerts around campus. It can also send out text messages and things like that. We have cameras just like the schools throughout the building. We have a safety committee, which I'm sure IUK does as well, where we meet monthly and we go over different safety protocols that are happening, things that we need to look at. We do annual walkabouts on the safety committee, and that usually involves a vice chancellor as well. And we'll go around the campus and we'll take students with us and we'll look for things that are off. We work hand in hand with the local police department to make sure that they're patrolling the area more periodically than on a normal day or downtown. So we go through those motions and try to keep everyone safe.
Todd, how are things over at IUK in this situation?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, let me say I really like Rob's answer in that so much of it has to do with relationships and understanding who your guests are, who your students are, who your employees are. Fortunately, at Indiana University Kokomo, we've had a tremendous safety record. But as I just told parents and students just a few weeks ago at orientation, I said, just because we've had a tremendous track record, this is not Mayberry. And then I, of course, tell the students to ask their mom and dad what that means on the way home. But we have a campus police department, and so we always have a uniformed police officer on duty, at least one, at all times that any of our buildings are open. We have a number of safety mechanisms, everything from a behavioral consult team that I lead to a counseling and psychological services team. We also do exercises to prepare for how we would respond to disasters. We do those campus-wide. So there is a lot of training, but a lot of it goes back to we tell students and faculty and staff that we're a family and that we have to take care of one another, and that I have a responsibility to every one of those students and they have a responsibility to me. And so we're continuing to look for ways to, with technology and other mechanisms, we're adding cameras, we're adding panic buttons, things that would allow us to respond in a crisis. We have a text messaging system to let the community know that we have a concern. But we also like to spend a lot of our energy in the prevention, not just the dealing with something when it happens.
Shan, you're not technically, a part of any school, but what's been your thoughts so far on what you've heard from all these people?
Well, I can say I can vouch for them all. And it's last year I've been at least one of their schools at least one visit, and several times with some of the schools here around the table, and it's hard to get in. It's very difficult to get in. When they say they close it up, they do close it up, and I think it's a sad commentary on our culture, but it's a necessary scenario that we need in our culture today to make our young people safe. And I would reiterate what Todd and brother down there, Rob Staley, shared, in that relationships are so key, and being able to prevent some of this by building those strong relationships, I believe, are key.
I think also we can't overlook the homeschooler component. In fact, in preparation for this program, I was emailed, hey, do you have a homeschooler representative here? And obviously safety is probably one of their concerns, so we're not deaf to that component as well. And we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and as an end user, my kids were homeschooled and are homeschooled, and they bring their own challenges and unique perspectives for sure. But I can honestly say that I feel safer with my children either on my campus at Ivy Tech's campus or any of these schools than I do at the mall or the movie theater, et cetera, because of all the mechanisms that are in place.
Maybe we can just go the other direction. The next question I'd like to kind of explore, and feel free if you think of something. I'd like this to be kind of a freewheeling conversation, not necessarily sequential serial. But if you had one single thing that you would wish the parents or grandparents could do to help their kids have a great school year this year, have a good education, what would you ask the parents to do to make this year better for their child?
Well, from the college perspective, it's we're getting to a point where the parents are kind of falling off, I think, more than they're probably involved in the high school. But for us, it'd be fantastic to have them involved, have them come to our events. We do different things in the community. We do different things with our students, and just having them there. And then, if we can get them to understand what college means, I know it probably happens a lot at IUK as well, but for us, we get a lot of first-generation college students. So if we can educate them on what college is, I think that makes a better experience for students in the long run.
I'd say from the elementary and high school perspective, a couple things. Just know my family and getting back into the routine of things is two things. One, set a routine. I think, everybody's kind of anxious to get back into school and the routine of things, and students really need that routine, whether it's when you come home right from school, get your homework done, and then, read, and then play or whatever, or come home, decompress a little bit, and then get your homework done. But have a routine. Kids really thrive on that. And the other thing I would say is we are with your students, the teachers are with your students every day, 7 hours a day. So we see and we hear and we listen. You know, if they're having trouble reading or having trouble with, some math concepts, work with us. I know that at times it's hard for students to work with their own parents. Myself being an example, it was very hard for me to work with my own mother, so I recognize that. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, I mean, we're with your students, so we see what the weaknesses and the strengths are. So working with the teacher is really going to help that student prepare better.
I just want to share as a grandparent that I echo everything that's already been said, but I would also include ask the right questions. Engaging your young people. You know, I every day I hear people say, "Well, my kid won't talk to me. They won't communicate with me." And I say, "Well, what questions are you asking?" And they'll say, "Well, how was your day?" Well, that's not good enough. You need to say, "Well, what was the most interesting thing of your day?" Well, be more specific. Not a yes and no question, and get the kids to talk. Also, texting the kid. I know that's crazy, but that's how they communicate, and being able to have that opportunity to do that. I think engaging that student as a parent or a grandparent is incredibly important.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in on that one, or go to something else here?
What can parents do to help the kids have a great year?
Ralph, you're wanting to talk. I know.
Well, parents, all of us want our parents to be more involved, and that goes way beyond just coming to a conference or two a year. You know, parents should ask the teacher, what reading level is my son or daughter reading at? You should know that, and if they're below grade level, then you need to be asking the teacher, what can I do at home to help? We really need parents to help and be a part of the child's education, and in many cases that's not happening today, and that really needs to change, because that could drastically change the child and also what they're going to be able to do later on in life.
The comments here have been very good today, and I think the one thing I want to echo is be supportive and start at the right level. For example, if you have a problem with a teacher in the classroom, your communication should be with that teacher in the classroom, and start at that level. Then if things don't work out there, or you're not getting the answers that you need, then move up to the administrators in the building, because they're the ones with the firsthand knowledge of the class schedules and what's going on in the building. It's not me that determines the student's class schedule. It's at the building level, and if it's a classroom issue, you need to start with the teacher at the classroom level. Email's great, phone call's great. One-to-one, face-to-face conversation is probably the best. So if you can set up a time and go in and meet with that teacher, find out what's going on, the good and the bad, with the teacher, and develop that relationship, I think that's what's important.
Don, I think you wanted to chime in on this.
I heard an interesting metaphor a few years ago, and I think it comes into play here. As a parent, you would never take your 7 or 8 year old and drop them off at the pediatrician's office, and then come pick them up 8 months later and say, "Hey, how was your year?" As a parent, yes, the school does not need a parent in there every day, but that involvement, all the things that have been mentioned, all of that discussion and support, because we want to be a partner with parents. And if we work together, we have a much greater chance of being successful.
Don, can I, real quick, I'm sorry, I like to ask questions too, but I think sometimes parents feel like they're not welcome. So how do you guys what do you do to make folks feel more welcome? Because I think it's a great comment, because there's so often, I think teachers they're wanting that support and that help, but that stigma, and maybe it's not because of that one-on-one, you can't see that body language, you can't feel it, I don't know.
But you're right, and I think our teachers in Clinton County are getting better at extending that hand. They're putting out that list. Here are ways that you can be involved. Here are the ways that you can help. If you've got an hour a week, here's ways that you can be a part of that. it is one of those very simple axioms of life. If you get to know us, and you get, if we get to know one another and know what our true beliefs are, you have a greater level of trust.
I'm reminded of the Ben Carson story. The mother who could not even read was looking over the paperwork. You'll have to do better than that. And she was engaged with his education.
This is a question we got called into us, and we remind you can call in questions at 659-3338. The past several years, federal and state legislators have passed several laws directly affecting public schools, new and changed requirements of student education standards, student testing, budgeting, school funding, and so on. What are you guys doing locally to handle that, and also how's it affected your school districts?
The new laws.
Who wants to tackle this first?
Here comes the state.
Yeah.
Well, could you tell us what the new laws are first?
No, I'm going to defer. I'm going to defer to Dr. Hanna. But before we get to that, what are we doing? Because we're just like anyone else. We have to take time to learn what are the specifics of the law. What are the interpretations? You try to project what's going to be the case law, because almost every new law that comes, it's challenged in the court systems. So you try to figure out where's the case law going to take this. All of us are members of the Indiana School Boards Association. The attorneys at the School Boards Association offer us opinions and policies, and then we take those templates and then we adjust them and we apply them to the local level to what works in our school districts. So those are the things that we do, and I think we'll let Dr. Hanna choose a specific one and talk about that, because there are so many, and just when you get tooled right for one law, it changes. But there's a lot of work, time, and effort that goes into preparing for the ever-changing laws in our state.
Thanks, Don, for the throw this way. I think there's a lot that's required for schools, and I think that's part of the problem. Our plate continues to grow with the amount of things that get piled on, and when they pile it on, you go, here, eat this, and we keep going down the buffet, and we get particular items that a legislator is interested in, and that gets, well, the kids are in school all day, let's have the schools do it. Generally, when they say that, there's no funding backing it up. There's no time to implement it or to learn, as Don DeWeese indicated, what is actually required and how are we going to do that. As a former superintendent I know used to say, the devil's in the details, and that's part of the problem. Let's do, the one that comes to mind is cursive writing. That's been brought up by a legislature year after year after year. Finally, it moved through. That's something we do, but I think it was done without much educator input. Again, I'll go back to Don's analogy of a physician. I would want other physicians involved in that decision when they make that decision for my child. I would want educators involved when they make that decision for my child. Is that the best thing, knowing where we're headed with technology anymore? You check a box that says, yeah, I've signed it, I agree with it, and they move on. So I think it has its place, but I think it should be a local decision. And there's a lot of things that's placed on our plate that really need to come down, what's important for that community. Benton County wind energy may be important and how to deal with that. Clinton County, probably not as much. So those avenues and those job avenues are important in that particular area.
So what law has changed that's going to have the most impact to our students this year? Anything that we need to be aware of, or is this more of a long-term thing?
Probably the change in the graduation requirements.
Can you kind of touch on that?
I might defer to Ralph here in a minute. Cliff Note version, basically general education diplomas. don't count toward graduation rate. Gentlemen and ladies, is that correct? So now I have this group. A lot of our students were honors diploma. We had 25 academic honors diploma last year, 7 with technical honors diploma, many, many more that had core 40. But then we have that group that's general education diploma. Those don't count toward our grade or our score come the federal level. So that is changed. And so those students that are in that general education path don't get counted this next year. And that's a very troubling concern because those students have met a standard. And here's the standard they had to meet 4 years ago when they entered high school. And now that we moved the bar. We keep moving the bar. Dick Fosbury, of the high jumper that changed the method of high jumping, they moved the bar. And if Dick Fosbury didn't come along, we would have probably still been moving the same direction, but there needs to be that catalyst for change. But I don't know that it's legislative and it impacts so many students in the state as a help.
Ralph or Amanda, you guys want to chime in on the graduation pathways?
Well, there's still a lot of unanswered questions about this graduation pathway. But the problem I see with it is I don't think I knew when I was a freshman in high school what I wanted to do for my career. And now, really, at the end of 8th grade year, we have to have careers in, and they have to choose a career. And are they going to choose the right one as a 13 or 14-year-old? I think that's very difficult and very questionable. And the other thing is the public needs to know that schools are probably the best at adapting to legislative mandates. We make it work. We somehow always figure out, if our budgets are cut, we figure out a way to make it work. And we've been doing that, and then that takes less control away from the local school boards to actually run their schools. And that's, I guess, what I'm very troubled about. But, this is usually sent down to us, and sometimes we don't even know the topic's been passed and then asked to do it. But rarely do we ever, as educators, get asked for input. And that's also very troubling to me.
I would also add, just taking a different spin on it, there are going to be some really great benefits from the new pathways as well. I mean, you remember when you were back in high school, there's some tests, in the prior graduation requirements, you had to pass 10th grade English or Algebra 1 ECA, which is an end-of-course assessment. Well, how many of us can say that we can go back in an Algebra 1 classroom and pass a test right now? I would need to brush up on it. But, for some students, that is extremely hard to pass that Algebra 1 ECA or even the English 10 with the essay and the reading and the constructed response. So the graduation pathways are going to enable, a percentage of students who that's very difficult for to get a high school diploma through a different avenue. They'll be taking some different courses, maybe some more hands-on technical trades type courses. So that is, I think, one of the best benefits of it.
Rob, I was going to ask you, how much has this law hurt you guys or made you guys change? I'm going to ask Andrew and Todd the same thing here.
So this law has set a new course for our organization. We have kind of remarketed what we're doing besides working with public schools across Indiana. We have about 35 public school contracts where we service kids who have not been successful in a traditional school environment. We have always done that through learning by doing, which is students working. And so we have 7 micro businesses we run in the state of Indiana. And then our students also are attending schools inside companies. So we build schools inside a company, and our kids are then employed from this. So this fell right into our lap, and we have had a lot of input, served on the, the committee that made this decision at the State House. We worked closely with our legislators, And so we're spending our time hiring people now, CTE directors, people that know how to write career pathways. We're working directly. We're the first Earn and Learn in Kokomo this year in the state of Indiana. And we are creating opportunities for our kids that are pretty phenomenal. One thing we're doing in Kokomo is we have now developed a CNA program where our kids are walking out with dual credit from Ivy Tech. They'll have a CNA degree, and these are kids that just did not function well in a traditional school environment. And you're so true that it is really exciting that the number of our kids that killed our school grades because they were not passing these cut scores now have an opportunity to count as a graduate, to be a contributing member of our communities, to be a part of the workforce. We're out focusing on learning and demonstrating employability skills through projects and service work and work-based learning, as well as the career pathways for post-secondary kids. And I would have to agree with Ralph that I'm not so hot on the whole idea that a kid has to choose a career. I go around the table and survey everybody here and say how many of us are even in the same career that we started in. But I do think that it's a movement forward to at least go back and listen to the voices of the people out there that are trying to hire employees. And they're out there saying, look, our kids are coming out of school, they're not skilled, they have no area of focus. We are hurting because we're trying to hire people, and so our job is to get those kids prepared. As a high school principal for 22 years in a public school, which was a fantastic position, and really admire what our public school educators are doing, I would have to be the first one to confess that we had a disconnect with the work world. We prepared our kids for a diploma, and we always talked about the diploma being, this is what you got to do. But the problem is that was an end result unless you went to college. Today, I think this is moving us in a direction of there is a second pathway, and we're excited about the number of our kids that are being hired now through manufacturing pathways. We now have health science. We are building schools inside hospitals. We have work teams in hospitals, and then we're working also running businesses with a business pathway, which is a great connection with our public schools because our organization was set up as a private school to do one thing, and that is service public schools. So we think this is really good. We focus on 10 soft skills and not necessarily the career pathway, even though we have to do a career pathway. That's what the state's required, but we have 10 soft skills that we talk about every day that makes our kids employable wherever they want to go.
Such as?
Be at work every day and be on time. Make sure you can problem solving. Learn to take a directive. Working with your colleagues, be a team player. All those things are things that no matter where you go and what you do in life, you can shift from one career to another. But if you have the 10 soft skills down, you'll be successful where you're going to go.
I'm sure Shan hears that from his businesses in the industry.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that we have talked about over the last 3 years in our workforce education forums is that, the number one issue is work on time and come to work every day, and absenteeism. And that one of those soft skills that Rob was talking about is so absolutely important. I want to say I'm honored to be around this table today because these are some great minds. I lower the IQ drastically, so I really am very appreciative.
We have that on tape.
Okay,
now.
really appreciative of being a part of this group. But from when you mentioned workforce, the workforce development professionals and economic development professionals were instrumental in this as well because they believe that pathways, when we're talking about, in some cases 50% of the student body that are not going on, and sometimes even more percentage of that not going on, where are they going to go? And most of the time they're going to stay in our community, in our county. And I would much rather be building relationships with those young people and high-fiving the ones like Colton Crum who are going to Notre Dame and saying, hey, go win an Olympic gold medal, but also knowing that we've got young people staying right here in our community that can be a part of a tremendous workforce opportunity. And that's what we're hoping to build as we see this coming. I am just so appreciative of these superintendents working together every day, and they do, folks. I can honestly tell you, these people, the competition is on the sports fields and the courts, but the collaboration is in the classrooms and in the administrative buildings that they work very diligently to make our community much better.
Andrew, do you or Todd, as all these changes to come down from the state, how much has it affected you guys?
Well, obviously, we get the product after the high school, so anything that impacts the high school level is going to then have an impact on what we do and how we do with students. But just one footnote I would add, and it may seem counterintuitive, but I tell high school students all the time, not everybody needs to go to college. Not everybody needs to go to college right now. And so if we can help students with their plan, that's what I tell my own children. You don't have to go to college. You have to have a plan. And if they have a plan, some of them will enter the workforce, and maybe it's 5 years or 10 years or 20 years down the road, they'll be ready for Ivy Tech, or they'll be ready for IU Kokomo. And so I think I applaud all of the efforts to meet every one of the students where they are and help them develop that plan.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rob and Shan and Todd made good points. We really get the byproduct. So on one hand, I feel their pain because I know how hard that is, especially as a young person to know. And I hear adults joke all the time. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. It's a hard thing to do. And Rob made a good point that we're probably not in the same career path that we thought, but it makes a big difference in the way we can conduct our business, and then also help the community through workforce development.
And as we work through this, it's pretty sobering to remember that you are dealing with all kinds of students with all kinds of history. Some of them maybe don't even have a place to sleep. On some nights, their parents may be in jail, or there could be a wide variety that you have to work with. And Rob, I know that particularly is one reason you got into what you're doing is the taking all of this raw material and bring it into something that society can use and that they can reward their life. I do want to mention we got 2 questions that came in, so we want to honor that. Also, this summit is being made possible by Ivy Tech Community College, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Clinton County Center Township, and Wampler Services Incorporated. Obviously, these people are putting their money where their mouth is and being able to, empower our community with a discussion like this. So we do have a couple questions. First one we got is, what are you doing if a child brings a weapon? How will you know? And what is your response time? Some schools have metal detectors, some don't. Some have armed officers. I don't want to necessarily dwell on this topic and take another 5 or 10 minutes. We've already covered it somewhat, but does anybody have an answer on that? 1 or 2 people, perhaps? What are you doing if a child brings a weapon, and how will you know? Response time.
Correct. You follow your board policy, and we all do have policies in place. We are very fortunate in that we've not had that situation for several years. Typically, you hear about it. If someone's going to bring some type of weapon, they're usually wanting to show off. It's for attention, and they will tell someone or they will post it on social media. So typically we know before they walk in the door, and then it's taken care of instantly. And something that we're not aware of, that's where that training piece is with our staff, our training with our counselors and police officers in the school. You have to be very receptive, and you have to figure it out. And at those times, then we have policies and procedures in place to handle that, and it would be handled very efficiently along with law enforcement, because then you are into not only the breaking of a school rule, but that is a criminal act at that point.
And I think Don hit the nail on the head, and I think it goes back to Mr. Staley's comments earlier. It's about relationships, and I think that's how we'll know. Most of the time, it's going to come from another student, or through social media or some way that we'll be alerted. Especially depending on how they bring it in. It could start as early as when the student gets on the bus. So there are procedures in place to deal with that. There's procedures in place. Once it's identified, we would respond, and respond, I think, in an appropriate manner because we have those mechanisms in place.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll be back with more of the WILO Education Summit after this.
You're home for classic hits.
The best from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
This is WILO, Frankfort.
WILO, a Casper media station.
In April of 2014, the Indiana State Board of Education approved the adoption of new standards for English, language arts, and mathematics. These new standards are the result of a process designed to identify, evaluate, synthesize, and create high-quality, rigorous standards for Indiana students. They have been validated as college and career-ready by the Indiana Education Roundtable, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, the Indiana Department of Education, the Indiana State Board of Education, and the Indiana Center for Education and Career Innovation. This means that students who successfully master these objectives for what they should know and be able to do in math and English and language arts disciplines by the time they graduate from high school will be ready to go directly into the workplace or a post-secondary educational opportunity without the need of remediation. The Indiana Public School System, pre-kindergarten through grade 12, operates within districts governed by locally elected school boards and superintendents. In 2013, Indiana had students enrolled in a total of 1,925 schools in 407 school districts. There were 59,863 teachers in the public schools, or roughly one teacher for every 17 students. There was roughly one administrator for every 331 students. On average, Indiana spent $9,566 per pupil in 2013, which ranked at 31st highest in the nation. The state's graduation rate was 87% in 2013. In the 2012-2013 school year, 52% of fourth grade students in Indiana scored at or above proficient on the NAEP test, the fourth highest rate in the nation. Of the 98,454 schools in the United States, 89,031 were classified as regular schools. After regular schools, magnet schools and charter schools were the most prevalent non-traditional schools in the country at 6,079 and 5,986, respectively. Indiana schools reported a graduation rate of 87% during the 2012-2013 school year. In Indiana, more students took the SAT than the ACT in 2013, earning an average SAT score of 1470. As of June 2015, school choice options in Indiana included charter schools, a school voucher program, tax credits, and intra-district and inter-district enrollment policies. Indiana spent approximately 30.8% of its state budget on elementary and secondary education during fiscal year 2013. The state school system's revenue came primarily from state funds. School districts in Indiana are divided into 8 different types: school townships, school cities and towns, township school corporations, county school corporations, consolidated school corporations, metropolitan school districts, community school corporations, and united school corporations. All types of district schools in Indiana are considered by Indiana law to be school corporations. For the 2018 WILO Education Summit, I'm Kevin Keith. Your free local online newspaper, ClintonCountyDailyNews.com, is your #1 resource for information as you need it right at your fingertips. We have news, weather, sports, obituaries, the WILO program schedule, over 40,000 community photos, online surveys, community events, and WILO TV archives. Plus, click on the info tab to find out how you can contact your local and state representatives. Find out what the buzz is all about. ClintonCountyDailyNews.com.
Here's the WILO Skywatch weather forecast for all of north central Indiana.
Including Burlington, Camden, and Frankfort. Mostly cloudy today, showers likely this afternoon, a high of 80. Showers and thunderstorms overnight, a low of 68. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, again showers likely, a high of 82. That's your Skywatch weather forecast from WILO. Check out real-time weather radar 24/7 at ClintonCountyDailyNews.com.
Now, let's rejoin Ken Hartman and Russ Casper for the Education Summit on WILO. Brought to you by Ivy Tech of Frankfort, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Center Township Trustee Kevin Evans, Wamplers, and Casper Media.
Okay, welcome back to the WILO Education Summit. I'm Ken Hartman along with Russ Casper. We're co-hosting the Education Summit here. We have 8 great educators here in our room for you. So the summit is being sponsored by Ivy Tech Community College, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Clinton County Center Township, and Wampler Services Incorporated. One question I've got for you guys is, what are you guys doing with the teen suicides, and have you implemented any of the teen texting services that are now out there?
Well, I go back to my earlier statement at the beginning of the year. We had 100 staff members go through that suicide prevention training, and that's the texting is part of that. And so the teachers were made aware of that last spring, I think it was. We held a professional development for all Clinton County schools who sent staff in to, through, it was Mental Health of America of Tippecanoe County, put on that program, so they were trained as well.
I might add something. Also, Clinton Prairie has been kind of unique in that we have set up what's called SLAM, Student Leaders and Mentors. This is, I think, our 4th year for it, where 7th graders are mentored by a sophomore, 8th graders by juniors, and 9th graders by seniors. And it's a small group. Once a month they get together, do some activities, but then they get to really know their mentor and, see them in the hallway, talk to them. If they were together in homeroom last year, so they really had an opportunity to, if they needed to share something. And believe me, some of these students just needed somebody to listen to them and to mentor them. So that's helped quite a bit.
Yeah, we've also had a lot of training on this. I just want to emphasize that this is a very serious problem today. I suspect there's someone in all the schools who is contemplating this, and I just call upon the parents and the public, if you recognize any of the signs, to let your school corporation know, because we don't want anything to happen to any of our children here in Clinton County. And this is something that we take very, very seriously and really watch closely each and every child. But sometimes there are some that slip through the cracks on us. And
Ralph, what could be a couple of the signs that we need to refresh our minds on?
Well,
for suicide?
Big change in the way the students are maybe acting at home or with friends or that type of thing, or if they've broken up with a girlfriend or boyfriend. Sometimes this tends to trigger this tendency. A lot of times just feeling lonely and not included in a group are some of the things to first to take a look at. But again, all of us need to take responsibility and be vigilant in watching the teenagers and actually below teenage. This occurs around the state in elementary schools also. So it is a very serious problem. I think Indiana ranks number 1 or number 2 in the nation in suicides. And again, we want to never have that happen in any of the schools here in Clinton County.
In Frankfort, last couple of years, all of our staff have had to take, as part of the Safe Schools training piece, a learning module on suicide and the indicators, how to handle the situation. I believe in our state, any certified employee that's wanting to renew their license, they have to show evidence that they have taken a suicide prevention and warning signs learning. I think all of us have a hotline, an anonymous hotline that our parents and our students can call into to report those types of issues. And then at Frankfort High School, we use a community period, which is very similar to what we all would have had as homeroom, but it is more student-focused and student-led. And those are the times and the opportunities that our staff use to discuss things like suicide.
Rob, I think you wanted to chime in here on something.
Yeah, so this is a horrific problem. It's like the military. When your soldiers are coming home from the military, and there's just such a serious problem with depression. And we have done a lot of study on this and watched our students. We have most of our kids are probably a little more at risk than a traditional kid. They have a lot of reasons to be depressed. Life has not gone real well for them. And the number of our kids that are multiplying the problem, or seems to fuel the problem, is they isolate themselves in technology. So they go home at night, they don't communicate with family, they don't even sit at the dinner table, they go to the bedroom, they get on Nintendo or whatever it is. I don't keep up with all that stuff. Fortnite. Yeah, Fortnite is probably the most popular. We're going to go kill somebody on a video game. And then they do their phone and they watch Facebook, and then somebody says something on Facebook, and then we got drama going on, and then we react, and then they bring it to school, and it just starts to multiply. The technology has been such a good thing for us, but it's been such a demon for us in so many different ways. So again, I'm going to go back to one thing that I keep going back to, and that is that Todd said it earlier, even at IU Kokomo, I love this, we're a family. We tell our kids all the time we are a family. We're such a family that the number one way we communicate with parents and students, and most of them at a poverty level, is through Facebook. Now, that's something we would never do in a public school. In our situation, that's how they communicate, so that's how we communicate. One of the things that we do is every teacher is assigned to 7 students, and it's almost like their family and their kids. We watch their Facebook posts, and the number of lives that we have saved just because somebody would say it. It just happened the other day. I just happened to be scrolling through, and I caught a kid saying, "Hey, it's been nice knowing you. I'll see you at the life thereafter." Immediately, we make a phone call. We have somebody at their doorstep. We go, "We got to deal with this right now." Unfortunately, I will tell you, we've dealt with over 10,000 kids in 15 years. We've lost 30, and over 15 have been to suicide. So no matter how hard you approach this, no matter how much you prepare for it, no matter how much training you have, the number one predictor that we have had and the number one tool that we have in our tool chest is relationships with our kids. So our kids will say to us, and I just had this happen 2 days ago, "Hey, Don he's not acting right lately. I mean, there's something bothering him. Could somebody talk to him?" Or we will go talk to him, but they cue us in nonstop saying, "Something's wrong here," because every day we have family time, we sit on couches and we talk for 30 minutes, and kids will pick up on kids around the table saying, "There's something going on here, somebody needs to trigger this." So because of relationships with our kids, and we did just the same thing in public schools, we have to trigger this, and we got to tell our kids, "You must speak to us because we've had too many of these funerals." So there's all kinds of things to do, but I think we all need to know that no matter what we do, there are some that are going to slip through that we just can't. Sometimes you don't read it. Sometimes they come and they look as happy as ever and everything's fine, and next thing you know, we've got a suicide. So it's a horrific problem. We encourage our families to interact with their kids. Our kids need ownership. They need to be a part of something. They need to know that they belong. They need to regain hope because they've lost hope. All those things are pretty complicated, but it is a complicated problem.
And I want to just add ditto, and thank you all. And I thank partners in our community like IU Health who paid for the training for our schools to go through the Safe to Talk program. IU Health has also spent about $20,000 in mental wellness awareness through some local media, and Community Health been a very strong partner with us in this. Healthy Communities, Wabash. We've got a lot of folks that are really, I think, very concerned about this. Not only from teenagers, but it's all across the board. Adults are struggling with job situations. Adults are struggling with the drama in their lives, anxiety, depression, all these kind of things that are going on. And we find new syndromes, it seems like, every day. So I think it's very important that we all stay focused on this, because in a kid's parents going through a situation, as we know through the crossing, being a part of the crossing board, it impacts that student greatly, and they come to school with that scenario, building those strong relationships as that has been mentioned. But I want to reiterate one of the things that that we're working on through economic development in the chamber and partnering with churches and our mental health folks, especially Healthy Communities, is a mental wellness awareness. In fact, your volleyball players are going to be there's going to be a volleyball game coming up in the near future. But I think Prairie, Frankfort, Roswell Central, they're all involved in this, where volleyball players are going to be wearing T-shirts. And just like the Coaches Against Cancer, this is going to be about mental wellness awareness and how these young people, and I applaud the younger generation right now, coaching football just last night. I'll tell you a real quick story. We had a young person that got his feelings hurt in practice by a situation that was not intended by somebody, and you could just see it all happening. And at the end of practice, the young man was at that point where he was at tears. And this is a junior high, a 7th grade kid, and you're thinking, back in my day, it was going to be, what, we'd have just gone pounded him and said, okay, crybaby, get it. But what happened is that 3 or 4 of the young people on the team went over to him and said, "Hey man, bring it home for us. You're the one to take us out of practice tonight." And I was like, wow. Isn't that a different scenario? And I think that so we kind of talk about being soft, but I think there's also a point of being sensitive to what's going on around you and understanding. But social media, Rob is so right. Social media is something that we didn't deal with back in the day. It has become, it's a huge benefit, but it can be a tremendous, really a tough challenge for us as well. Ralph, I know you get the mic. I didn't know if you had something to say.
Well, he asked about signs, and that's just by recently going through the training. Mental Health America gives you scenarios that you run through. And, for example, one of the scenarios, the person started to get things finalized. He'd give things away because he wasn't going to need it anymore, became isolated. We talked about that. The social media, Snapchat is a biggie with kids and how that's affected. And I think one of the things that my take on the training was, this was a scenario as an adult, but the kids did a scenario with the kids on how they perceived the adult, the wife of the person, and also his coworkers and his supervisors. Those people, if they connect and talk and basically say, "Do you know anything different? Or have you noticed anything different?" I think when you come together, you start to build the blocks to say, "Hey, now I need to reach out to this person to see what's going on." Yeah, what's changed? What's different?
Yeah, and I just want to, and we all know this, but to state the obvious, so many times alcohol and other drugs are a multiplier for all of these issues that people are struggling with, and that's another leg to the stool that we have to consider.
On piggybacking on that, I've officiated 21 funerals in 14 months. 8 of them have been under 30. 6 of them have been drug overdoses. 2 of them suicides. So and it's across the board. So it's something a hands on deck, all hands on deck type of scenario. And I applaud all the folks around this table that are working very diligently to see the signs.
Kind of want to shift gears here and talk about maybe a fun right brain topic, if you will, a Rip Van Winkle topic. It's 2018. We wake up in 20 years. What's education going to be like? Let's assume that the purpose of education is to equip for the future, and you could argue about whether you're talking about moral or just academic, etc. So where are we going? The model of having a talking head in front of a row of seats compared to the Oxford model where it's one-on-one, compared to the Boy Scout motto where you're actually doing and swimming and tipping over canoes. There's a lot of ways to learn. So where are we going?
First of all,
and technology too.
In 20 years, you won't see me anymore.
Because he's eating these donuts.
But I believe that education is going to be less place-bound. I believe that flexibility of learning, I think that we do understand now that learning can take place really wherever people gather. And so I think there's the less place-bound, but I still feel that the public school plays a critical part of that and is going to continue to be at the heart of communities. I think they're still going to be an important place for kids to gather, but that's not just going to be the only place where learning can take place.
I was actually at a conference a couple of years ago where they talked about futuristic schools, and we're talking 20, 30 years from now, but they were talking about how and I kind of see it right now where our schools will be more specialized. We might, Prairie and Rossville might partner with Purdue, and then you come to this campus to get this type of training. Or, Frankfort might be the housing unit for this type of training. And we kind of do that as well right now. We partner with Frankfort with our vocational programs, and Central and Rossville as well. So we share some programs. But what was also interesting too, and I'll just bring this up, not that we need to hash it out, but sports in high school sports will all become club type activities in sports, and I think we do see a lot of that right now as well. So,
well, I'm going to piggyback off of Amanda because that's exactly where I see things going in 20 years, and I'm excited about it because I see each one of your campuses as college campuses. I see they'll be specialized, and I see, agribusiness is huge, and it's going to either be, Rossville, Prairie, or Central that's going to take the lead in that, manufacturing and technology. I think fine arts, and I look at over at Rossville because I always go to that beautiful auditorium, and I walk in and say, man, this is a gorgeous auditorium, and what they do in their drama and their music department, and then general studies. I think that is really a key component. Also, early learning in Clinton County is going to, in 20 years, we will have an early learning academy. In 20 years, all of our schools will be connected to a program that from the time that they are, born, we're going to start teaching our young people, and their vocabularies are going to be well up into the hundreds, if not thousands, before they go into kindergarten. And so they are prepared for school, they're ready for school, and that early learning coalition that Don and I are a part of, and that many others are a part of, working with Healthy Communities and other folks, I think it is paramount. And I went to 2 years ago, I went to an economic development early learning conference. I was the only economic developer there in the whole state. I was shocked, and I was kind of really frustrating. But we had educators there, and we had legislators there, and they were all saying the same thing. We've learned so much about the brain development now. 0 to 5, 90% of the brain is developed. 0 to 5. So we spend all this money on post-secondary, but we're not spending, I don't think, enough on pre-education and how we get those kids a sponge. Every one of us. How many questions does a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old ask? And we need to be filling their brain with good stuff. They hear enough bad stuff, so we need to. So I'm excited about the academy that will be in before 20 years. Don, we're going to have an early childhood development program. It's going to be fantastic. We're going to set the stage for great success in Clinton County, and I can't wait for those kids to move on into any one of your schools and be successful. I think Clinton County is going to set the bar. You talk about the bar. I think Clinton County will be setting the bar in 20 years.
So the technology piece makes me a little concerned because we know it's going to be there. We know it's going to be huge. I'm always concerned because I love the teacher in front of the classroom. I love the relationship. Schools are about teachers and kids and relationships and families, right? I think it can be done with technology, but I think our schools are going to go more one-on-one. I think we're going to see more independent learning and growing and learning at their rate, which is a good thing. We got to figure out this relationship thing because the teacher is such an important part of the educational system and how they're going to work within the technology difference. The other thing I think it is that whether we're talking about career pathways, early learning, whatever it is, Ivy Tech, working with our universities and dual credit classes, I think we're going to see a lot more partnerships with industries, the workforce, and universities. And so when you said a college campus, that resonates with me because already we're pushing really hard at how we're going to figure this out with the college level, and our kids are getting dual credit. And I think we're going to do a lot more outsourcing in education than what we do right now. For years, we've kind of said, this is education and this is our gig right here. And I think there's too much pressure and too many things going on that we're going to probably have to go, look, you're really good at this. We're going to let you do this, and you're going to do this. And I think that's going to happen a lot more. But for years, the model has been, we got it. We don't need the outside help. We're either going to die and kill ourselves because we're too tired and exhausted, but we can't be good at everything we do.
Fewer silos and more matrix.
I think so, and I think that we're all starting to figure that out. I think it's moving in that direction.
And with technology and computer, we can start comparing notes, and the AV department is unparalleled with the equipment they have, and then you're pulling people and matching resources with needs.
Sure, and technology, and even, I don't know if you guys are doing around here, but we used to use distance learning, and we had a teacher at Central High School was instructing kids at Concord High School, and so all that stuff is all going to be pulling us together in more partnerships and relationships.
Andrew and Todd, how do you guys view colleges in 20 years?
Well, I think they made an excellent point. I think a lot of things are going to go to technology, but I think life's cyclical, and I think you made a really good point. We need relationships. Those students we talked about in suicide prevention, they're isolated. They're going to want to come back. I think there's so much emphasis on being alone in your room, doing social media and things like that I think at some point we're going to cycle back to classrooms. I know we have a lot of technology available at Ivy Tech, and I see a lot of students say, you know what, I don't want that. I want a face-to-face class. I want to be in there. So, through the years, I think we're going to, in my opinion, I think we're going to see a lot of technology, but I think we're going to cycle back to a lot of classrooms.
In some ways, colleges and universities have been fairly static. There are very few businesses, if you will, that look almost like they did 100 years ago. And colleges and universities put 30 students in a classroom and give them 3 hours of credit, go live in a dorm like they did 100 years ago. I think we're going to see increasing pressure from stakeholders to respond to the needs of our future students. As you know, college has moved in the last 2 generations from being considered, as we fund it, it's being considered a private benefit rather than a public benefit, and that's for another conversation. But now more and more of the responsibility is being borne by the students and their families. I think we're going to see, and we're already seeing, students putting together a buffet of credits as they earn a degree, and colleges are going to have to wrestle with what does that mean? How do we become flexible in our general ed requirements? How do we be flexible in terms of how many credits somebody can bring in from another institution? We're seeing 18-year-olds come in with 30 hours of college credit from 3 and 4 different colleges and universities before they ever hit our campus, which is not a bad thing. But it's a challenge as how we look at that. We also, students talk about they want a face-to-face experience, but they also want that flexibility. And so, for example, I think if you look at our summer school classes, the online classes are very popular for us in the summer, but there's still a desire from students to be in that face-to-face or a hybrid model where some of it is online, but they're still getting that interaction with the faculty member.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and take another break. We'll be back with more of the WILO Education Summit after this.
In April of 2014, the Indiana State Board of Education approved the adoption of new standards for English, language arts, and mathematics. These new standards are the result of a process designed to identify, evaluate, synthesize, and create high-quality, rigorous standards for Indiana students. They have been validated as college and career-ready by the Indiana Education Roundtable, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, the Indiana Department of Education, the Indiana State Board of Education, Education and the Indiana Center for Education and Career Innovation. This means that students who successfully master these objectives for what they should know and be able to do in math and English and language arts disciplines by the time they graduate from high school will be ready to go directly into the workplace or a post-secondary educational opportunity without the need of remediation. The Indiana Public School System, pre-kindergarten through grade 12, operates within districts governed by locally elected school boards and superintendents. In 2013, Indiana had students enrolled in a total of 1,925 schools in 407 school districts. There were 59,863 teachers in the public schools, or roughly one teacher for every 17 students. There was roughly one administrator for every 331 students. On average, Indiana spent $9,566 per pupil in 2013, which ranked at 31st highest in the nation. The state's graduation rate was 87% in 2013. In the 2012-2013 school year, 52% of fourth grade students in Indiana scored at or above proficient on the NAEP test, the fourth highest rate in the nation. Of the 98,454 schools in the United States, 89,031 were classified as regular schools. After regular schools, magnet schools and charter schools were the most prevalent non-traditional schools in the country at 6,079 and 5,986, respectively. Indiana schools reported a graduation rate of 87% during the 2012-2013 school year. In Indiana, more students took the SAT than the ACT in 2013, earning an average SAT score of 1470. As of June 2015, school choice options in Indiana included charter schools, a school voucher program, tax credits, and intra-district and inter-district enrollment policies. Indiana spent approximately 30.8% of its state budget on elementary and secondary education during fiscal year 2013. The state school system's revenue came primarily from state funds. School districts in Indiana are divided into 8 different types: school townships, school cities and towns, township school corporations, county school corporations, consolidated school corporations, metropolitan school districts, community school corporations, and united school corporations. All types of district schools in Indiana are considered by Indiana law to be school corporations. For the 2018 WILO Education Summit, I'm Kevin Keith. Your free local online newspaper, ClintonCountyDailyNews.com, is your #1 resource for information as you need it right at your fingertips. We have news, weather, sports, obituaries, the WILO program schedule, over 40,000 community photos, online surveys, community events, and WILO TV archives. Plus, click on the info tab to find out how you can contact your local and state representatives. Find out what the buzz is all about. ClintonCountyDailyNews.com.
Here's the WILO Skywatch weather forecast for all of north central Indiana,
including Burlington, Camden, and Frankfort. Mostly cloudy today, showers likely this afternoon, a high of 80. Showers and thunderstorms overnight, a low of 68. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, again showers likely, a high of 82. That's your Skywatch weather forecast from WILO. Check out real-time weather radar 24/7 at ClintonCountyDailyNews.com.
Now, let's rejoin Ken Hartman and Russ Casper for the Education Summit on WILO. Brought to you by Ivy Tech of Frankfort, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Center Township Trustee Kevin Evans, Wamplers, and Casper Media.
And welcome back to the WILO Education Summit. I'm Ken Hartman along with Russ Casper. We've got our area educators here. We're having a great time doing this. One of the questions that we wanted to have put out there is, what has been the effect of the governor's workforce certificate thing for you guys?
Well, I'll just open it up, and I tell you, you talk about collaboration. Here's another great example of collaboration within our 4 schools of our county. In fact, I want to applaud these. This is the first county that all schools came on board at the same time, and very excited about that. In the state, we're talking about in the state of Indiana, the governor's workforce education certificate was something that Governor Pence instilled a couple of years ago, and a few schools that kind of piloted that. It was very successful. It is an opportunity to partner with industry and get industry folks to partner, manufacturers to partner. The Governor's Workforce Education Certificate is another kind of a National Honor Society type piece where at the end of the school year for seniors, they will be recognized if they actually met the qualifications for this. And those qualifications include, and are not limited to, because there's more, but include the things that the manufacturers are really looking for. Attendance, 98% attendance, and some folks say, oh boy, 98%, but that's what the workforce is looking for. So you've got to come to school. 98. That means I believe you can only miss 4 days. Superintendent, 3 days? Wow. So you can miss about 3 days, and that's it. Also, 6 hours of class or school service, also 6 hours of community service, and then you have to have a reference or a referral from a coach or someone in the community as well. So we think it's going to be a great opportunity. We're certainly hopeful that there will be folks and that will take advantage of it. I'm talking about students, seniors that will take advantage of that. So very proud of all of our schools. I want to applaud Matt Hines and Megan that came from Rossville. I'm trying to think Rossville. Megan and Matt went. They attended IUK. We had a big meeting there a few months ago. They came back all thrilled and excited. And Matt put together the application and then presented it to everyone. And then we've got manufacturers involved. When we get manufacturers being involved, that means manufacturing is going to give incentives to these students. We're going to move their application to the front of the line if they've qualified. We're going to see possibly give them 50 cents on the hour more if they qualify. So these are some great opportunities, and again, I applaud the schools for doing that.
Yeah, and while the program, I think, was designed for those students who might be immediately looking to enter the workforce, we believe those skills are the same. Those skills are the same ones that lead to success in college. And so we established a scholarship a partial scholarship for students who have that work ethic certification. So if they choose to come to IU Kokomo, we have a small scholarship for them that to reward them for those behaviors that they've developed in high school.
Great. Another incentive.
What Shan was saying, we kicked that off earlier in the summer, Engage Clinton County, and next spring, 2019, we are looking to hand out certificates at all 4 of our high schools, and this has been in the oven for a few years, and we've talked about it, but it's very exciting now that some of our kids are going to be handed that Engage Clinton County Workforce Ethics certificate. So we're excited about that.
Okay, one question we got called into us is, are we doing enough to transition students from county schools into industry having the skills needed?
In going to the manufacturing and education forum meetings for the last 2.5 to 3 years, the short answer is no. It's a hard leap, but it's just like anything else. It's not a simple answer. Some of our partners out in the industrial park, according to their insurance and their risk management, they can't even have kids that are 18 years old on the property. Some of them handle government contracts, and they can't have, you got to be 21 to be in there. So there are some stumbling blocks for the internships and the externships, but we would want the people of Clinton County to know that we are working on it. We have discussions quarterly with everyone at the table, and we are working on it. And it's not easy, but right now Clinton County is probably doing it as well as any county in the state.
How about from our county school perspective, how you guys feel?
I will say it depends. It probably depends on the area, your program area. For example, agriculture, I think our kids are out there and they're in the community, they're involved, they have very good skills when they leave Rossville, as I think they do at the other county schools that have the ag program. I think that there are students that are involved in our vocational cooperative. I know we've added some programs the last several years. For example, we have students, I think all are involved in the EMS program. We have several involved in the building trades program. Matter of fact, that program has trying to transition over the years, and Rossville has had in the past couple years very few students participate. Because of the Engage program, and I think because of Megan Woodruff's excitement, we have 5 in there now. And that's probably been the most we've had in several years. So I think it's changing, it's evolving. I think programs like this help.
Well, I just ditto all of that and would also let the folks know that the community schools of Frankfort, Rossville, Clinton Central, and Prairie are working diligently to make sure that those students are ready for the world, period. I mean, not just manufacturing and industry, but the world, period. I look back over the last couple of years and see the welding program that Frankfort started because Wabash National came to us and said, "Hey, we need more welders." I think of Fontana Fastener coming to us and said, "We need bolt makers," and Ivy Tech sitting at the table saying, "We're going to create a bolt making class, a certification for bolt making," and I think we have community partners that are willing to step up to make sure that these young people are ready to rock and roll. Because here's one of the stigmas that I get really stuck in. Folks look at manufacturing and say, it's dirty, it's a dead end. I'm telling you, folks, most people know that work out there, you can make a very good living in manufacturing, and you can make a very good career in life, and you can still do your passion. If you want to play the guitar on the weekends and make a great paycheck during the week. And I think that's the message that I'm hearing counselors share in Megan and Matt. And I think those are the key pieces, I believe, that need to happen and continue to happen.
We at Clinton Prairie and all the county schools recognize the need that not all students graduating are 4-year college bound. So we have actually added some industrial technology courses at Clinton Prairie. We felt that in our community, in our setting, that Intro to Advanced Manufacturing would be an appropriate class. So we've added that class for this year, and Introduction to Construction Trades, because after this course, then they can enter building trades at Frankfort and then complete a pathway for graduation requirements. So it kind of, checkbox two areas in that intro. So, in a time where industrial technology was being cut, I think you'll start to see it come back, but it doesn't look the exact same way as it did. And so at Prairie, we were fortunate enough to be able to offer those 2 courses for our students.
Here's a perspective that I'd like to ponder for a moment. Each child, each student is a ship, okay? Analogy here. And that ship is, you have talent, information, motivation, and emotional control. So with those 4 things, the talent is the talent of that particular student. Not a whole lot you can do about it, just get acquainted with it. That is kind of the size of the ship, the hull, if you will. How big is the hull? The information component is what you put into the ship, the voyage of their life. Information. What are you going to load into that? If you come from a disadvantaged home, you're going to be loading some different stuff than the kid that goes to Culver every summer. But that information is going to start filling that ship. The bigger the ship, the more the talent. The motivation is the port that ship is going to go to. And they're trying to figure out where are they going to sail. The emotional control, we've talked a little bit about that today because of the suicide, etc. That is the ability of that ship to sustain the emotional storms that will inevitably occur when that ship is sailing. So, it's a real challenge to put together varying talent, getting the information in the ship. What port is this ship going to go to, and can it survive all these storms?
Let me respond to your ship analogy. Okay. And we talked a little bit about this at earlier break, and I think all of us have some type of program in place. You talked about the hull of the ship. Well, if that ship has a lot of baggage on it, extra weight, it's going to be harder for that ship to sail to that port that they're headed. So I think one of the things that schools do, K-16, all the way up the line, is try to take some of that burden off of the students and family. I know at Rossville we have a backpack program where we send food home to families on the weekends. IUK talked about a food pantry that they have available. We really look at those needs. We have a Angel program. We go back to, I believe it was August 1st, Stuff the Bus. Those are avenues that we have, and because the community is giving as they are, to help reduce some of this baggage on the ship so it can go a little faster to get to the point, and maybe also help with that emotional control because now I have those resources coming in. So maybe that helps move the ship along.
Sometimes I think we get hung up with just the information component,
right?
And it's more than that.
Okay, I wanted to ask this because this is definitely a change in direction from what the schools have been doing. Ball State's making SAT and ACT scores optional for this year. Good or bad, and what's your thoughts on it?
I think that's a good thing. I mean, I had 1,600 when I took the SAT, but I'm not going to tell you how many times I had to take the test, so it added up to 1,600. So
we have that on tape now.
Yeah. So and very quite honest, when I had the graduate records exam I had to take to get in the principal program, I either had to have 3 years experience or get a certain level on the GRE, and I studied the Gallagher method the night before, which meant I watched Gallagher the night before. You guys have to YouTube that for the younger audience. But I know I didn't do very well. But I think I've done okay since then. And on that GRE test was probability. I had never had probability when I went in there to take a test. So as far as those items on the test, I think it really comes back to what that person's course of study has been over the period of time, how well they studied for the test, and I think even for us, it's test-taking techniques that we focus on a lot, which really, how important is that in a global society? So I guess I see the SAT and what Ball State's doing is maybe a step in the right direction.
And let me say it, as someone who oversees admissions at IU Kokomo, there is no perfect way to evaluate who's going to be successful in college. We've looked at it. There is some correlation between SAT score and how they'll do at IU Kokomo. It's not perfect. We found that a slightly better indicator for us is GPA, but that's also flawed. Because different school systems grade differently, and you're in different systems. Some of these standardized tests have cultural bias built into them as well. So we try to use a combination, but I don't fault Ball State for looking at it a different way. Again, because there is not a perfect way to evaluate or predict how a student's going to do when they hit the college campus.
I would just second what Todd said. I think it's pretty cool being a Ball State graduate that they're looking at a holistic approach, and I think probably everybody's doing that. I think it would be way too easy for somebody to go, this is our cut score, and you don't get in. It's kind of like the GQE, right? It's like our I-STEP and everything else we've been in, of course, assessments. When we just draw the line and say this is in or this is out, I think we miss so much. And we have so many kids that can't make cut scores, but they're now foremans and making $50,000 a year. One of my appeals to the State Department when we were doing this pathways was, what do we think about the kid who does well in work, and he's a working kid and uses his hands and learns by doing, and he walks out with a $50,000 a year job, but he can't get a diploma because he didn't make the cut score? That makes absolutely no sense. Well, it's not any different when you're making that selection at the university level.
Yeah, and I agree, especially with Todd. I mean, there's no easy way to make a good decision on that, and I think they are going in a nice direction, and I think your approach is a great one as well. It kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier with technology versus in class. Some of these people might do better on their own at their computer and may not do well at on a test. It's just everybody learns differently, so you can't narrow it down. And then, Ivy Tech it takes a different approach. We don't have to have SATs or ACTs to get into Ivy Tech, so it really helps us put people in in the right place if we use them, and if not, they don't have to have it, and we have assessment testing for that.
Okay, this is going to be the last thing we do, and I want to let everybody have their last piece here. Anything you guys want to bring out that you haven't brought out yet or wish we had talked about? And we'll start here with Don and go around the table.
Just want to go around there.
Yep, go around the table.
Summary comments.
Okay, summary comments.
Now for the wisdom.
I'm looking at your boat analogy, and I'm going to say we need our boats to be in a body of water that understands that not each boat is going to get to the destination at the same speed and the same rate, but that most of them are going to get there, and all the boats that maybe don't get there, we all are going to make every effort to get them as far and as close to that destination as we can.
Well, I would agree with Don. There's going to be storms out there in that sea as that boat goes along. Divorces, family changes, all those types of things, grandparents passing away, and, the children have just a lot of struggles. There is a lot of baggage that's brought in each and every day to the schools. And again, I would say that Clinton County is very blessed that all 4 county schools deal with it very, very well, and we keep that boat moving. And we're concerned. Again, relationships are important, as has been brought out today, and we stress that at Clinton Central, that the teachers need to get to know the kids. It doesn't cost a dime, and it can be so powerful, so powerful, and the families. And so I'm sure we probably don't do as good a job as you do at that, but we attempt it to get to know them. A few years ago, I had a kindergarten teacher, and before school started, she went out and visited every child's home. And if we just had time to do that, that would be very powerful. But we don't, unfortunately.
Continuing with the boat analogy, our dock has been under construction this summer. So I just want to say thank you to the staff that's worked so hard this summer, and we will be completing a new roof project that was way overdue. So by October, our roof will be completed. Updated lighting in every room, and then some restroom remodeling, which needed to be done very badly as well. So when our boats get to school, they will have a newly renovated dock.
Well, if we're continuing down that line, Rossville is currently under a building project. They poured concrete this morning starting at 2 a.m., so it's an early rise. So I think that the thing is to understand, too, we're going to do whatever we can for the best possible education of our children. My children go to Rossville. They get on the bus just like the majority of my students, and or they get dropped off by their parents, and when they walk in those doors, I want the best possible education for those children, theirs and mine, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that happens. There are hurdles that happen along the way. There are those storms, and I think that as educators, we've weathered those storms very, very well, and from funding from the state, from curricular requirements, from those different avenues, I think that we do our best to try to make sure that when students exit, they've had a good, solid, basic education that will let them go to the next level.
I have the opportunity working with school administrators and teachers all over the state of Indiana, all the way from northwest Indiana down to Indianapolis, and I can tell you that it grieves my heart when I hear people start to ridicule the public schools, because we've lived there, we know what's going on, and here's the difference. The difference is, if we're going to talk about people who are struggling to educate our kids, let's talk about the kids who are struggling just to get through life. And so our kids are coming to us, as it's been mentioned, with so much baggage. We have to be surrogate parents. We have to take kids home. We have to figure out life and how they're even going to survive the next day. And so to be critical of what we're doing in the public school system is hurtful, because we're making progress. We're teaming together. We have more collaboration we've ever had before. And my hat's off to our public educators who are so committed and dedicated and are doing the best they can, and they mean very well. And people ought to give them credit, because unfortunately the customers that are coming to us are different than they used to be 30 and 40 years ago. And it's a tough audience, but we'll figure this out, and thank you for your patience and support.
Thanks, Rob. I'll echo what you said. I think that was a very poignant way to say it. I also want to thank Ken and Russ for putting this together. I think, just having us all together in this room really highlights what great position we're in this community. Shan being here is fantastic. It just shows how well we work together in this community. And I think Shan makes some good points earlier that, we're on the right track and we have a good future, and hopefully that 20 years down the line is going to look pretty good here in Clinton County.
As we welcome a record new class to IU Kokomo this fall, I'm going back this afternoon to help students move into housing across the street from us. Thinking about your boat, my message would be to the parents who are sending students to college at IU Kokomo or wherever across the state. And that is, they're going to have anxieties and worries and all that about as they start. Trust your craft personship. Mm-hmm. You've built a vessel that can be successful. All the people around this room and all of the staffs that they represent have helped build a vessel that can be successful. And so trust the work that you've invested in that vessel. It doesn't mean that it won't come home from time to time. Leaking a little bit and in need of repairs, maybe carrying a cargo of dirty laundry. But trust the work that you have done and that all of the educators have done to help them be successful.
And I go back to that old song that we all love and know back in the disco era: "Rock the boat, don't tip the boat over." I think that's kind of the message here. We're going to rock the boat sometimes. There's going to be, as Ralph said, there's going to be some storms, but it doesn't need to be tipped over. And I think that's where the tipping point, I think, comes when we get a lot of emotions involved, and we don't look at things sometimes logically and clearly, and sometimes parents can get fogged with a lot of things and accusations in the same way on the other side of the aisle. But I go to what Rob said, and I applaud the administrators and the schools in this county that are working diligently to raise, because we all have to live together. And and one thing that I would like to see is K to 14, because I believe that if we can get those dual credits and get those younger people, I'm not too sure that we have enough young people who are mature enough to get out in the world at 18. I think maybe that opportunity of keeping them engaged and that family, and then taking that eagle, that bird mind, and kicking them out of the nest and getting them down a little bit later. Because I agree with Ralph. I'm not too sure some of these at 18 they know what they're doing, what they're going to go, and how we can maybe help facilitate that and give them an associate's degree by the time that they get out of high school. I think is a huge opportunity working with Ivy Tech and IUK and Purdue University. So applaud Russ and Ken for this time together. You guys did a great job. Dennis, you've done an awesome job making sure everything stayed. You didn't let the boat get tipped over, and I greatly appreciate that. And one last compliment. Every one of these school corporations have gone through tremendous challenge, both emotional with loss and tragedies in the last couple of years, but also as Amanda and Brother Dr. James Hanna shared with construction. This guy went through a $28 million rehab, and this guy has had to come back to Clinton Central School in a tremendous deficit, turn that ship around. And I applaud Ralph, because you had one of the biggest challenges facing you as any superintendent. And I'm telling you, that is a testament to this community and a testament to these people around this table that have worked very diligently. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Rush, you want anything else?
No. I appreciate it.
Okay. Guys, I want to personally thank every one of you for being in here, and also want to thank our sponsors for putting this show on. That's Ivy Tech Community College, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Clinton County Central Township, and Wampler Services Incorporated. Everybody, thanks much, and we'll hope you've enjoyed this, and we'll see you down the road. Take care.
Thank you for joining us for the Education Summit on WILO. This morning's broadcast will be replayed this evening at 6 p.m. on WILO. The WILO Education Summit 2018 has been brought to you by Ivy Tech of Frankfort, Encompass Credit Union, Jerry's Body Shop, Centertown